Heavenly Father, today we put on the full armor to protect us against attack. We put on the belt of truth to protect against lies and deception. We put on the breastplate of righteousness to protect our hearts from the temptations. We put the gospel of peace on our feet to walk in your light, peace, and freedom with the Holy Spirit. We rebuke anxious thoughts. We take up your shield of faith for protection to block and destroy all the darts and threats thrown at us by the enemy. We put on the helmet of salvation to cover our minds and thoughts, reminding us that we are children of a mighty King. We are forgiven, set free, saved by the blood of Jesus. We take up the sword of the Spirit, your living word, that has the power to demolish strongholds and is sharper than any double-edged sword. We come to you, Lord, in prayer daily. In Jesus' mighty name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
What's up, you guys? Welcome to The Imagination. I'm your host, Emma, and this week I'm honored and excited to bring back one of my most beloved guests, my dear friend, the bravest father I know, and whistleblower of all things Maximus Inc., Jack Pendergrass. I can't believe I've already known Jack for a few years now. I met him on Twitter, where I know a lot of you follow along on his journey, and was so grateful that he chose The Imagination to make his first podcast debut. And as a quick update, Jack has returned to Twitter after his account was purged last year. So you can now all go and follow him once again, which I know you'll be really excited about. But I was so shocked at what he was uncovering and posting about this massive company called Maximus Inc. that I invited him on to the show. And he's been one of my very best friends ever since. Since his first appearance on the show, this will be his third appearance today. He has appeared on many other podcasts, including collaborations with the awesome Ricky Leaks team on Telegram. Jack also has his own Telegram channel called Maximus Disclosure, where he dishes all the tea on Maximus Inc. and how this massive company that flies under the radar is arguably running the biggest child trafficking ring and data collection agency in the entire world. And almost none of us have ever heard of it. I consider Jack to be a masterful and thorough independent researcher and journalist, and what he's uncovered in trying to understand how and why his daughter was taken from his care through the secret family court and how it led him to where he is today is just incredible. If you're interested in learning Jack's backstory and the basics of Maximus Inc., I'll have his playlist posted in the show notes below for you to listen to before or after this episode. This time around, Jack is going to take us on a deep dive into his native state of Tennessee and the layers of corruption he's uncovered from the top down and bottom up. Tennessee is a state that largely and often flies right under the radar, and I know you'll be all just as shocked as I am in what he's going to share. Although the focus of today is Tennessee, our hope is that we walk you through these layers of research and that it'll give you all listening helpful tools on how to do the same research in and about your own community, cities, and states. Independent research is a tremendous responsibility all of us have, but it can also be really confusing and frustrating on where and how to start. As Jack walks us through his findings in the state of Tennessee, understand that these same but different layers exist in every state and that each of you are so capable of shining a light on what is hiding in the shadows. So you guys, without further ado, I'm honored to have back on the show Maximus Whistleblower, selfless father, man of God, artist, independent researcher, and my dear friend, the one, the only, Jack Pendergrass. Jack, thank you so much for being here with me today.
Hello, Em.
It's so great to have you back. I still get people that reach out and will post on your episodes. What happened to Jack's Twitter? I'm clicking on it and it's not there. So I'm really happy that you're back on Twitter and you're back in action. So what's been up, Jack? How are you?
I'm good. Just trying to stay warm like most of the country, I guess, right?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, for people listening, the Midwest area states have just gotten a pretty big blizzard and it's been like negative temperatures. So we're pretty cold out here.
Yeah, this is like even for us, like, I'm in East Tennessee, like southeast, like 15, 20 minutes above Chattanooga, and like it's unseasonably cold here. Like it's pretty mild normally. We're in between we're butted up right against like the Appalachians to the east of us, going in like North Carolina, uh, the North Carolina border, basically, and going over towards Nashville, the Cumberland Plateau. So we're kind of situated in the Tennessee Valley, right? So it's usually pretty mild, but not so much this year.
Oh my gosh, it's taken us all for a little, whirlwind, especially because like in a week it's going to be in the 50s, almost 60 degrees. So it's like, wow, what a change.
Yeah, yeah, it's ridiculous.
Well, I'm happy you're here today. I'm happy we both have power. I've been saying prayers for people who don't during this time, and hope all of you on the other side of the screen are staying safe and warm this time of year. But Jack, I'm super excited for this. We've been kind of talking a while about doing a deep dive on Tennessee. You've shared so much about Tennessee with me and with so many other people. And because I don't live in the state, I get little pieces, but I'm actually really excited to learn about, just how this entire web of corruption exists in your state, and sort of the breakdown of how you've been able to discover and uncover a lot of this. So why don't we talk for a minute about why it's really important to get this information out, and kind of the inspiration behind why is it really important that we are talking about not just the state of Tennessee, but just, this breakdown in general? I'd love to hear kind of your overview of it, because you do a really good job explaining why this is really important for people to understand.
Um, in general, like, so we're all aware, like, how terrible the quote unquote news is, right? The lies, the deception, the manipulation of information. Um, that being said, it's not like this stuff that we research can't be manipulated either, right? So it's completely necessary to if you have a chosen subject and you start researching it, find as many references as you can to that particular piece of information, to validate it, right? So in that you're establishing, actual fact and truth about whatever it is you're researching. I think it's essential for everybody to start locally, because you will see the big picture is like, these power structures, these political structures, they all follow a similar pattern, right? So um, I think for any of us who are researching and doing these deep dives on everything, we'll find those parallels in every state, so it's not isolated. But I think it's up to us, your citizen journalists, or however you would like to, title it, what we do, to get the information out. Start with, your in your own communities, and then branch out. That's kind of how I discovered the information I have about Maximus. Um, and I think it's also essential um, that we don't fall into this. I don't know how to say it. Um, we don't fall into what the mainstream media does. Um, and I'm not knocking the truther movement or people who do research, but it requires a great deal of focus to do what we do and remain on a subject. I guess I mean to say is like, don't become an echo chamber. Don't just repeat what you hear. If you do hear something, check it out for yourself, and then share your findings, and that way other people can analyze it. But also, don't fall into jumping from news story to news story, or whatever just happens to be in the news cycle. And and that goes for like for any social media platform, whether it be Twitter, Telegram, Facebook, um, even Rumble or Discord, or any of those, any of the platforms we use. Um, but it's essential to get the truth out and stick with a given subject. You, like I said, you start locally, you help where you can, and then from there, you'll at least in my case, I started garnering attention, and people started helping me, pointing me in the right direction. So that's my intent, is really to help people and show them how they can do their own research and benefit those in their local community. And in that, we all win, you know?
100%. And I love to, the state of Tennessee really does fly under the radar. People have this idea that, oh, it's a Bible Belt state. You know, it's just all these really happy, nice people. And it seems that way. Like it's a very charming, awesome state, you know, especially Nashville, which is, you know, probably the most known city, I would think, in the state, that it's like a destination that a lot of people have either visited or it's on bucket lists, you know. And we have this with uh kind of this relationship with states like that, and we don't think to dig further, right? But there's so many things that have come out of Tennessee, especially since I've met you. I've had Corinne on this podcast. She was actually her last episode I did with her. She was talking about, she works at a safe house in Tennessee and talks about the corruption that she sees helping human trafficking survivors. Her episode was deleted off of my channel. You know, so you see like how much they don't want us to talk about this state, which is really interesting because it's a state that, like I said, people don't talk about a lot. But it's like, are they not talking about it, or is the information just being covered up? And I would beg to say it's being heavily covered up. And then there's this facade that's put out to the public that people think that it's just this awesome, beautiful, charming state. And it is in a lot of ways. But when you look under that kind of facade, there is a lot wrong with this state from the top down, you know. And I think it's really fascinating, Jack. You're such a good and thorough researcher. I know I said that in the intro, but I've been so inspired watching you. You could have stopped at that family court level and just said, oh, I understand what's going on. I know what parental alienation means now. I know what happened. And I'm going to just stop there and just talk about this aspect of what happened. And instead, you're always, well, what's the layer up above that? Well, what's above that? Well, what's above that? What controls that? You know, and it's led you on this global hunt almost, where you've uncovered a global scheme that's not just happening in your family court. That's not just happening in Chattanooga. That's not just happening in Tennessee or the United States, but all over the world. You know, and that's why your research to me is so important, because you've never stopped. You've been researching for well over a decade. And every day it's a new question. You don't just stop right where you're at and say, all right, I'm done. You're always saying, well, what's next, and what's above that, and what's this connected to, and what's that network, and oh, what's this word mean, or what's this secret society? I'm going to go dig into it. Who's involved in the secret society? You know, so I just think it's really amazing. And I think this information is important. Learning from you has helped me tremendously in trying to dig up things in my own research, you know, and I'm excited to learn from you about this, just as I'm sure everybody else is, because as Jack said, you know, this template that we're going to dig into here, you can take it to California, you can take it to New York, you can take it to Kansas, you can take it anywhere and duplicate it in a sense. Sure, the scenarios, the networks, the layers might differ, but the layers are there, you know, and we're going to hopefully give you some tools where you can go start researching yourself and say, all right, I understand how maybe it's a pyramid, maybe it's a tree. I understand that there's something in my state, in my community, in my city that branches out to this person and this person, and it goes all the way up to the top, you know, and I'm going to go take these tools now and start trying to construct that. So I don't know where you want to start digging in, Jack, but maybe oh, doggies. My little dog is sitting right next to me. I can feel him get up. He's like, oh, I might go bark right now. I don't know.
We can
Where you want to kind of start, but let's start digging into some of these, you know, details that you've discovered.
Okay, I'll kind of preface this like, okay, I'm near Chattanooga, right? So this is part of how I arrived where I'm currently at in research, right? So
that's perfect. Maybe start with where you started, you know?
Yeah, my background in chemicals and whatnot, and working for DuPont and some of the other major chemical companies, it always made me wonder about Chattanooga and like its proximity, its geopolitical. Why is Chattanooga so important in the South, right? So I was like, okay. So you start with simple things like that, okay, and then it becomes organic and it grows. Um, so I was like, okay, um, me knowing about the families that run Chattanooga, and I learned a lot about that because my family court stuff and who my daughter's mother's family is, and the schools and the associated people with that. So one thing led to another, and so I started with the Baylor School, prestigious private school in Chattanooga.
And what made you curious to look into that?
So you start for anybody who's like looking at this stuff. I mean, it's super simple and it's always in front of us. We just don't realize it's there. Like, you see a name on a building or like a wing on a hospital. You start looking at these prominent names, um, and that will usually spawn a lot of really good results if you start looking at who owns what, why do they own it, how did it come to be, the who, what, when, where scenario. So I started with Baylor School because there again, that's where my daughter's mother went to school, and those are the people who have for many generations ran Chattanooga, right? So that's how I began doing that research. Maximus is um, a separate but parallel to that information, right? Because what these wealthy families, they're inevitably involved in politics. So you start looking at legislation, state legislation, legislators, attorneys, anybody with influence and affluence in your area. Start looking at them pretty hard, and you'll probably find a lot of what I have here in your own town, city, state, and so on and so forth. So that's how it's kind of how I arrived at what's happening in Chattanooga, and which led me to Oak Ridge. Um, and I've had this. It's a fascination with like nuclear weapons, right? Like since I was a kid, like it always fascinated me and like simultaneously terrified me to watch all the atomic bomb explosions and nuclear weapons and things of that nature. Um, so then, so it started with the politicians and everything like that.
Well, I want to
And
say real quick too, going off of that, what you said, I can't state enough how important it is that we need to look at people in power more closely. We're so used to just, again, the public persona and saying, oh, look, they went to an Ivy League school. Oh, look, they got a degree in this. Oh, look, they were a legislator for this long. They have to be a good person, and we stop there at the titles and jobs and resume. And we don't say, were they in a secret society? Did they commit crimes? Are there people around them that have maybe gone missing or been hurt or, and just digging into that person and saying, all right, if I'm going to be friends with somebody, I don't just be friends with somebody and trust them because they have a resume that looks great. You can hire somebody that has a great resume and they're not a good person, right? And so I think we need to have that critical eye. We need to think about all these people and say, what would I want to know about this person if I were to trust them? Like, what is trust? Is it just looking at a resume and saying, oh, they're a good person because they're accomplished? Like, it's proven that psychopaths can be very high functioning, sociopaths.
right,
So assuming that somebody is good just because they're on TV or they're awarded a position of power or they have a degree, they went to school here, it's really foolish on our end. And I can't state enough how important it is that you just said that, because I think that is an amazing starting place. Those people are out in the open. We don't even have to search for them, and all the stuff that's hidden can sometimes leak out when you start questioning those people and start, branching out that web of deception.
Yeah, that's a very keen observation, because like what we are presented with as this is not this is my face. That's it. Um, and there, and you associate an image with what you think about somebody instead of what you actually know. You haven't invested any time, or like you said, you've not done any background, looking into that person, who they are as a person. You're just presented with this pearl white smile. They look good in the suit, or they pass this law or that law, and it's 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 you got to get past that superficiality. Um, if you don't, then a lot of people say, well, let's just take a personal relation with somebody that you may have been friends with. Um, some of the information about that person may not present itself immediately, and it takes time to learn about it. Same thing for these people. You really gotta research them, and um, if you don't, you could end up in a very bad way. Um, because we know without any doubt that secret societies exist. They just do. And and these secret societies, they don't recruit your average person. These are bloodlines, right? Um, Gary Wayne, like, very articulate man, very knowledgeable. Really enjoyed his episode with you. That interview was fantastic.
Yeah.
And Gary touched on some of the hierarchy, and how the pyramids work, as far as like the structure. And you find these in every little town, little city, little, whatever, wherever you are. I think in the South, it kind of goes without saying that, um, I think it's almost common knowledge about, KKK and certain that aspect of society. But the KKK was started by Albert Pike, right? But Albert Pike was a Freemason. He was a high level Freemason. Um, and so, like, for me growing up, that was pretty common knowledge. That the Klan was very prevalent, all across Tennessee, Arkansas, and some of the other states. Um, but that there again, it's these power structures have existed for thousands of years. Um, People are placed into positions, like the politicians. There's always somebody pulling somebody else's strings, and Tennessee is no different. Um, for those who aren't aware, uh, when we talk about Oak Ridge, I'm talking about the Manhattan Project.
And talk about what Oak Ridge is too, for people who have never heard about Oak Ridge. And that's pretty close to you said, right? Pretty close to
Yeah,
Chattanooga.
about maybe 2 hours in, like, just
Okay.
northeast of me.
Yep.
It's tucked in the middle of freaking nowhere, in the southern Appalachians. Oak Ridge is a national, and what I've discovered recently, and the information's been there for a long time. I just didn't know about it, right? So it takes a lot of research and a lot of aggregation of information to arrive at where we're at. Um, and I want to tell everybody, I'm not the authority on any of this. There's some really great researchers out there too, tons. Um, but I can say that I just, with the exception of some of the people on one of the links I sent you, you just don't hear people talking about it, because we know that these secret societies will remove people who make their secrets public knowledge. They will get rid of you, either through just outright taking you out, or through public degradation. You know, they will beat a person down and make them seem incompetent from every facet of their life, right? From a from a professional life, you know, they can remove you from a position of wherever you're at. You know, we see doctors and lawyers and politicians taken down all the time, right? Because somebody has exposed them because they didn't do something they wanted. Anyway, so Oak Ridge is a national lab, and it was literally a city built overnight um, during the Manhattan Project, which was, you know, part of a system. You know, there was Los Alamos and Alamogordo, New Mexico, where they're working on nuclear weapons in World War II. Or I'm sorry, um, I think it was World War II. But I think the research had been going on since um, the 20s and 30s, maybe even further than that. You know, on back to when they actually discovered radioactive isotopes and materials in the 1800s. Anyway, so there, Oak Ridge is part of part of an international conglomeration of labs that are dedicated to researching nuclear or radioactive isotopes, and just an immense amount of experiments in many areas that I'm still learning about. You know, they're manufacturing parts for CERN, um, so they're part of that. But Oak Ridge predates CERN, and that's where they first started really getting into the exotic sciences, like looking for exotic matter and on a smaller scale than CERN. But CERN is, you know, and that's how it operates in the lab. You start out with a control, and then you start out small, and then gradually the experiments are engineered larger and larger in scale. So um, Oak Ridge is a scary place. Like, that being said, you know, they've been looking at opening portals for a long time into other dimensions. Now, there was a young lady named Leah Broussard, who is I think she's a particle physicist there. I can't remember her exact title, but they were looking at other dimensions, opening portals into other dimensions some time ago. So that's one aspect of Oak Ridge: nuclear weapons, global biosurveillance systems, uh, pandemic planning, mitigation. Uh, what else? Oak Ridge is involved in some bad things. What we see on the surface and what's presented to us are good things, right? And Gary made this, you know, a very good point um, when he said that they do these things in public to make themselves look good. That way, behind closed doors, they can do whatever kind of nefarious things they want, and nobody's the wiser. Uh, that's a great point he made, and that's what's happening here near Chattanooga, Oak Ridge, every little town and little city. You know, these things are happening. What else? No, the reason why the biosurveillance programs at Oak Ridge are so pertinent right now is because of COVID. Um, Global biosurveillance programs, just so everybody knows, you know, I don't want to focus on one particular area today, but global biosurveillance programs really began in Germany. with the Nazis, and that was through IBM and the systems they designed for Hitler, right? That was a precursor to the Social Security number, the system they designed. IBM is critical on a global scale also because these exascale computers, the one at Oak Ridge right now was created by Hewlett Packard, but IBM has been a part of these powerful computers that are leading us into quantum tech, right? What else? I mean, the stuff gets deep fast. So, but behind all of this are the secret societies that we know about, and the one I kind of stumbled across.
I don't want to forget about Baylor too. So let's go back to that a little bit.
Yeah,
you don't have to right now, but just as a reminder.
yeah. Baylor. Everybody should look it up. It's the Baylor School. It's not Baylor University, but the Baylor School in Chattanooga. There's also the Macaulay School, which was an offshoot of the Baylor School. Same families that run Chattanooga created the Macaulay School. They felt Baylor wasn't conservative enough, so but Baylor was fundamentally when it was created a military academy. Kind of the same thing for Macaulay. And these are wealthy families. I mean, old money families in Chattanooga. I couldn't even tell you how many generations far back some of the money goes. European dynasties, Yeah. So that being said, okay, the older generations of the families I'm talking about, and some of the newer, some of the younger people, they're in quote unquote secret societies, Freemasonry and offshoots of that. Just to briefly touch on the history of Chattanooga, like at the turn of the 20th century, there were documented over 110 secret societies. Oddfellows, Knights of Corazon, Knights of Pythias, but they all fall under the Masons and Freemasons umbrella, right? So that's when I kind of began looking at like some of the schools, and this is a good place for people to research too. Look at the fraternal societies at your colleges in every state. You will find a ton of information just looking at that.
Especially if you happen to have, say, like an Ivy League school or some very highly accredited school that you hear about a lot, or that's very prestigious or expensive. We look at that again, the public personas to say, oh my gosh, I would have loved to go to that school, or oh my gosh, that person graduated from that school. That must mean that they're so smart and such a good person. But there's a lot of nefarious stuff that, is happening behind all that money and all that publicity and reputation.
Yeah, there really is. And it was looking through that lens, is like how I really did, like started looking at. I found some contracts, right? Looking at stuff from Oak Ridge, who's running the programs, and it's UTK Patel. So then, that didn't shift my focus, but there again, there was another parallel there. I'm like, okay, so we have Oak Ridge over here, UTK over here. What brings them together? And the connections just they kind of exploded exponentially. So you start. A lot of my research happens organically. I don't think I could mind map it or anything like that immediately. It just goes crazy, right? um, so started looking at actually the history of Tennessee. I'm like, okay, we know Freemasonry was and is still very prevalent here. Okay, so how does that relate to now? This was the same people, the same generational bloodlines are present at UTK. Um, and those were the same families who founded, and created Oak Ridge. They're all involved. Tennessee's Lieutenant Governor Randy McNally, who we've discussed um, regarding some other things. His father worked as an engineer on the Manhattan Project. Um, and I think that it's not so secretive. I think you'll find that in a lot of the older families in Tennessee who worked on the Manhattan Project. But what they don't tell you is like the secret societies behind it. In particular at UTK, I came across just some. I don't even remember how I found it. It was some random reference to Egypt, right? Um, there was a, I think it's a now almost 9,000-year-old settlement that was destroyed or at least covered up when TVA came into being in the 1930s here and flooded much of the area. There was an Egyptian settlement that was flooded and covered up, um, and that just the information kept aggregating, kept collecting information, and came across the Scarabean Society at UTK, the Senior Scarabean Society.
And this is a secret society that exists within the school.
Within the school, and it extends, it crosses political boundaries left and right. Um, I just off the top of my head because he's so notable and a lot of people know of him. But Peyton Manning um, is a what they call a scarab. Now there are other notables that I just can't remember at the moment. There are other notable members of the Senior Scarabean Society. And I think we've got a link.
You want me to bring that up?
Yeah, yeah.
A screen share here for all of you. Jack stumbled on something pretty neat.
I came across it before. Kind of dismissed it when I initially found it. I just type in random searches, word associations, and I'm pretty good at picking out certain things. So it starts kind of nebulous, and starts kind of in the ether, and then you kind of pull out these little things, and you start doing word associations. So it may have been something as simple as Tennessee secret societies. So I started combining things, and seeing what kind of little threads were coming out of this tapestry that's been woven for a long time. And this was one of them. So I think for a lot of people that were kind of familiar with the Skull and Bone Society at Yale, the 322, right? This the Senior Scarabean Society is an offshoot of that.
Interesting. So does it have a direct relationship to Skull and Bones?
Yeah, I haven't been able to track down who actually founded it just yet. And it might be in this website, but this website is just so exhaustive in its information. I'll start I'll start reading something and then kind of get away from it. But I always come back to this. and I think I've shared this a few times on my. I don't know if I've shared this on Telegram or Twitter. Um, but for anybody who, like, if you live in not even if you live in Tennessee, but this will this particular site is exhaustive, and the way these gentlemen, these were UTK students who wrote all these articles and made all these connections, and it didn't happen overnight, right? I mean, this has taken many years for these fellows to write all of this. But this site names, I mean, it's incredible.
Should we talk about what scarabs are? I hope I said that right.
Yeah,
Uh,
scarabs are Egyptian dung beetles, right? But they're associated. I think I think it gets into the mythology much more in depthly than I can at the moment on this site about the mythology of the scarab, and it gets into Gnosticism and to the well, not so much Gnosticism, but the religious beliefs of the Egyptians and how it relates to Freemasonry. Um, and I think that gets a little bit on down.
I think I can click. Do you know which? Some of this verbiage on here is hilarious. Skull and boners.
Yeah, these guys are like the fellows who are writing this, like, I mean, it's very serious in what they're writing about, but I think they had to, in one part of the art, one part of one of the articles, they're clearly angry about the power structure at UTK and how the Scarabean society affects everything on the campus. Gosh, I don't want to sound uneducated about it, everyone, but there is, I'm still learning about all this.
There's
I
a
found
lot.
this,
I'm
yeah,
gonna use that one little part. Can you see this part, Jack, where it talks about the dung beetles? Maybe we could read a little bit from this paragraph. It seems to have kind of a little overview of it. Or
yeah. If you wanted to read from it, that'd be fine.
let me see. One of the things I thought was interesting that's quoted in here is Tennessee is the Cayman Islands of the campaign finance system, similar to the money laundering paradise of the Caribbean. Scarab is incidentally the name of the offshore racing boats preferred by pirates, which is also incidentally the name of the Scarabeans underground newsletter. Narco bootleggers in Real World and on Miami Vice, and the owner of Scarab Boats was gunned down at his manufacturing plant in Florida. It's kind of fascinating too that this crosses state lines. Some of the history of something in Tennessee is referencing Florida, the Caribbean, Cayman Islands. Let's see, what else does it say? We can kind of go down, but where was who's who?
Um, I, it, it sounds silly, and I need everybody to understand this. Like, I use whatever information is available, and I can care less if it's on Google or Wikipedia or Brave or DuckDuckGo. Always double, triple, and however many times it needs to confirm something.
100%.
So it doesn't matter just as long as you confirm it and, like, there again, present what you find and you can get some other eyes on it. But yeah, Wikipedia's got a pretty good list of scarabs.
Is this, do you know if this secret society is it a very small group of people who get to enter. Do you know how many people they invite every year into this one?
Yeah, it's pretty exclusive. It really is, and it's much like it. You mentioned it was an offshoot of Skull and Bones, right?
Yeah.
So
Oh, this is fascinating. Many students go through the University of Tennessee, Knoxville without ever knowing that a secret force is at work. The organization known as the Caribbean Senior Society. When I first heard about them, based on my personal encounters with the society, I came to have an awareness of this organization and functions. Let's see. Organization went completely underground. They are known to groom prospective members into submission to their way of thinking by getting them comfortable with various perks and prestigious positions in public groups on campus. That sounds familiar. I think that transfers once they get out of college also to be placed in certain positions in society. Past
yeah,
notables, Chris Whittle. Who else? Does it say anybody else in here? The Scared
um,
Senior
yeah,
Society is composed of those male members of the senior class who have manifested in an exceptional degree during their undergraduate career the qualities of dependable manhood, natural leadership, and active, intelligent loyalty to their alma mater. It numbers, some members are also among faculty and alumni. As regards its meetings and processes, it is a secret organization, but its one purpose is to foster a progressive college spirit by quickening worthy student activities and advancing through every legitimate means of the welfare of the entire student body.
oh, the verbiage they use, they it's like any other secret society. They lull people in, they make them think that what they're doing is for the greater good of society, and it couldn't be anything but the exact opposite. Um,
100%. And I think
Gary.
too, it's when I did a podcast with Josh Monday, you should all go back and watch that. We talk about elite societies in colleges and high schools for a whole episode. One of the things that he came to a conclusion of was he believes, and I would have to agree, that a lot of these secret societies in these youth schools are training grounds or grooming for bloodline families to advance in society, so even to get in, they look at, you could have the best intelligence, rate high on an IQ test, and if you're not a bloodline family or not somebody in their network, you still are not going to get into it. So he looks at it as kind of a grooming or training grounds to get into higher secret societies such as Freemasonry, Illuminati, but also to be placed in these positions of power once they graduate. You think about how impressionable is a high school or college kid's mind. Very impressionable. Those are prime kind of indoctrination or brainwashing years, if you want to call it that. So what better way to, enforce compliance, obedience, have people take oaths, get blackmail on them, when they're young, so you can position them to succeed in whatever placement they're going to get after college.
Yeah, and um, it even begins when they're children, um, being members of polite society. The South is just full of these things that nobody really thinks about, like kicking a tea. I don't know if you've ever heard that term, but the women in these societies, the Eastern Stars and some of the other female offshoots, will teach their young ladies etiquette. That etiquette classes, right? It's so that they can maneuver through society. Not really anything that there's an ulterior motive to everything. They still do that in Chattanooga. They still do that in like some parts of upper society in like Alabama and Mississippi and Georgia. So it's social engineering is what it is. They may not refer to it as that, but that's what it is. The societies that, the cultures they've created, that we think it's all a facade, a horrible facade. But it's, as Gary had touched on, and Josh, these are the power structures. This is how we are and why we are today. It's just nobody does a lot of deep diving. And Tennessee has just escaped the radar for so very long. I'm kind of tired of. So I guess let's look at Oak Ridge a little bit and
Yeah, let's do
Tennessee,
it.
the history of Tennessee. I got to looking at that.
I'll close this for right now if that's okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
Um,
I'm gonna this is a very, I mean, it just keeps scrolling and scrolling and scrolling. For those of you listening, or maybe if you can't see it, if you're just listening, this is a very extensive website. There's tons of links. There is tons of information. So I'm going to link it below. We might refer to this more, but I know we wanted to show you just because I want you, and Jack wants you to see just how much there is to this. And this is only, kind of scraping the tip of the iceberg. There's tons of other references in here for people to go look up, and I'll link it in the show notes so you guys can go click on it and browse it.
Definitely. And, I wanted everybody to understand, like, I will be posting, to Twitter and Telegram and things like that. So all this information is much more cohesive. So it doesn't see, so it's not just a mishmash of random information, because that benefits nobody when you can't see the relations. So Tennessee, just a very brief history on what I found is Tennessee was once part of North Carolina, right? So when Tennessee actually became what we know as the state of Tennessee, and even before that, the area in Northeast Tennessee, which is going up towards Oak Ridge and above that, like Johnson City and some of the other outlying areas, we were settled by initially the Swiss and Germans. And I was watching some videos related to Oak Ridge National Lab and the Manhattan Project, and they were interviewing some of the locals from Oak Ridge. They were recruiting Germans for before Operation Paperclip. So that's another thing. If you're not familiar with Operation Paperclip, you need to look into that. That's when the United States was bringing in, the Nazi defectors from Germany under Hitler over here to work on the bomb. But they were recruiting before that. So that's one aspect of Oak Ridge, in Northeast Tennessee. But if you don't know anything about the Swiss, you really need to look at them. The Swiss are descendants of the Egyptians, the pharaohs. They're pharaonic bloodlines in Switzerland. We're talking millennia old money and bloodlines in Switzerland. And there again, that goes back to directly to Egypt, Scarabaean Society, the Senior Scarabaean Society, Freemasonry, and everything associated with Egypt, right? And the French translation of Switzerland is Les Sœurs d'Isis, the sister or sisters of Isis. it would be required, to do a deep dig on every country to, I guess, really get an accurate depiction of the power structures. I'm just trying to give people little bits and pieces of information to kind of see if anything like this is like relates to your particular town or city. It may not, um, but a lot of the ways we research can be applied that way. So the Swiss and Germans settled northeast Tennessee. Tennessee became a state. Fast forward a little bit. The Judiciary Act of 1789, which is what Washington signed into law, and you'll have to research that. But it just so happens consequently that when Washington signed the Judiciary Act, that's when Freemasonry in Tennessee was actually formally founded. And it was because the Freemasons took over the court system. So state legislatures, attorneys, lawmakers, whomever, are behind this also, but they're also all members of the secret societies. So it's a pretty sordid past of Tennessee. It just is escaped for so long, and not many people are realizing it. But it's my full intention to start with Chattanooga and work my way up to Oak Ridge and move across the state to disseminate whatever information I can find for everybody. Tennessee is so important right now on a global scale. Just nobody knows it. Chattanooga is globalist central right now. We've got the first quantum network, first quantum computer first quantum network, which ties into the Smart Cities Initiative under the WEF and UN. It ties into, and they can say whatever they want as politely as they want. The Smart Cities Initiative is to turn not just any city, but the globe into a surveillance state. They want to be able to monitor everything we do at any time they choose to do it. And we're seeing that now. Chattanooga has over 200,000 sensors of various types and over 4,000 miles of fiber optic currently, and they're expanding that for the smart city grid system. Folks, this is not just happening here, but we're ground central, and we're a testing bed. So what I mean to say is things that happen here, you will see in other cities. It's an eventuality. It's not a if, but just a when. And a lot of the tech for the smart city initiative is coming out of Oak Ridge. So there's the direct relevance of that. Your national labs, Los Alamos, Oregon, Fermi, they're all part of it, and they're all tied into CERN. So that we're CERN, that's in Switzerland. So we're seeing a full circle, right? It took me a long time to read and understand what's happening in Chattanooga, and we're just a testing bed for global policies. And it began here in the early 70s. So anytime you're in a city and they have some sort of, like here we have, it's called CARTA, Chattanooga Area Rural Transportation Association. On the surface, it seems like a good idea. You have bus services available to people living outside the city, but what happened in Nazi Germany? Well, they were funneling people and mass transit systems into the city. Why? Well, we know what happened in Germany, and it's really nuts outside of me speculation as to what could happen elsewhere when they start doing that. They start forcing people on mass transit systems to be funneled into a city. It's simple. It's just control. But Chattanooga, the city council members, and there again, the families of these secret societies have all painted this picture that Chattanooga is just this wonderful tourist destination. Well, it is. It is. It's a really beautiful city. But beneath the cool surface, you've got to look at why they've done that. They're funneling people in for bad reasons. Just period. It's bad. And I've actually lost friends over the years because of my stance on this stuff, and they just refuse to see it.
It's a hard reality for people to grasp, and I think that's what makes it so confusing for people to even want to look into it, is because when they hear a little bit about it, like you said, it's very hard to compress this information. So somebody comes across a post, a couple posts, an article, a podcast, whatever it is, and it just sounds so outlandish because it is. It is insane. The deliberation, the intention, the planning for millennia that has gone on to create what we see today as our reality, our government, our world. It seems implausible to people to think that this could have been happening for so long that all these people could be in on it. But that's exactly what it is. That's exactly what's happening.
Yeah, it really is, and the thing about these no normal person would think like this. No normal God-fearing person would think like these people do.
Right.
It's evil.
Yeah.
It's purely evil, and that's something else that's escaped the radar too. Is like the how important Tennessee is um, to human traffickers. Like we are a hub for human trafficking. Um, and there again, that leads us back to Oak Ridge, right? Because they're able to monitor the traffic into, out, and around, going through Chattanooga. Um, and they're doing it FEMA, which is essentially been operated by Maximus. FEMA has mapped every single structure in the United States. Okay, every single building FEMA has mapped, and this is on their website. They don't even hide it. I came across it on LinkedIn. I use LinkedIn as a resource too for anybody who's researching. LinkedIn is really great because you've got a lot of wealthy individuals flying it in their positions on LinkedIn. So that's a great resource.
Okay.
But yeah, there's just so much happening here. And I got into an argument with a guy a couple weeks ago on Twitter about, which smart city came first, and he was like, oh, it's Racine. I'm like, you really need to take a look at Chattanooga. And Racine may have predated Chattanooga by no more than a year, maybe two. But all the money for the Smart Cities initiative is being funneled into Chattanooga. It's outrageous how much money is going through the city. And there again, when we talk about human trafficking, we're also talking about logistics and moving people on a mass scale. So if you know where the people are and where they're going, you can also make sure that people who don't need to see that happening, you can avoid them, right? I mean, yeah. I mean, I'm sorry, everybody. I don't mean to sound disassociated or a little.
No, you're not. It's a lot of information. I think one of the things for me that really woke me up to Tennessee is meeting our mutual friend Angie, who is dealing with a very high profile case, including the mysterious death of her son. It was a murder. And the people surrounding that, and through digging through that, because it's involving, very high level people, that's helped us put together and validate a lot of Jack's research and put together some of those webs for us. And it's an incredible story. I'm not going to talk about it a lot on here, but I want to mention it because I think for those of you who, I hope she'll come on the podcast sometime soon. I'm hoping to cover her story soon too. But, you know, that's another great place to start in your cities, in my opinion, is look at what are the cases that maybe people are talking about that are on the news. What are some high profile whistleblowers coming out and saying, if you can find it. Again, it's not going to be on the news, but you can definitely look up whatever city or state you're in, and put human trafficking cases. And even if it's not a mainstream headline, you can usually find a podcast where somebody's talking about it, or an independent journalist, somebody like Jack who's reporting on stuff. And I always feel like it's a really good resource to go pay attention to those people, pay attention to those sources, listen to it, because you're going to hear alternative things that you're not going to hear on the news too.
Yeah, and as soon as you start doing this stuff and you start taking it seriously and start investing time in it, you will get called all kinds of names. Paranoid.
You're on mute, Jack. There we go.
Yeah, you'll get called all kinds of names. I know I have been,
Yeah.
and I've been called all kinds of stuff for the better part of 20 years. But don't be afraid, because as outlandish and as insane as these things sound, it has happened and will continue to happen and until we can mobilize and shine the light on it, for everybody, So don't be dissuaded or feel like your voice doesn't matter,
And I think too, like one of the things that I'd like to do with you is why don't we go to the top? Let's talk about Governor Bill Lee. And we can kind of branch down, and even we can throw in some examples from Angie's case and show people how infiltrated it goes down into churches, into law enforcement, things like that. But I think he's a very interesting person in power. And again, somebody that is in such a public eye, and he, he always looks the part, he always dresses the part. You hear nothing but great things about him. But as Jack's discovered, there's a different side of the story also. And just in general with governors there's Governor's Mansion, which we'll go over, and just some very telling things with some of these people.
Yeah. I mean, we're just kind of hitting, different areas today, but
Yeah.
it all relates and it's goes back to the secret societies and the power structures created therein and how they affect us. But Bill Lee, I don't think any of us had an idea initially about that guy, and then we started doing our little digs, here and there, and pulling out, extracting little bits of information and putting it all together.
Especially because one, like, you don't hear about him hardly ever. He flies very under the radar, just like the rest of the state does.
Yeah. I would encourage everybody, like, if you got a chance, look at your state's governor's house. I can almost guarantee you that they're all Masons or Freemasons. And if you look at, if you know anything about Masonic symbols, I'm just almost guaranteeing anybody who does that will probably find stuff related to Freemasonry. It's just part of the power structures. But Bill Lee, I've got to look into him a lot more. But we know what he is. He is a member of quote unquote the order, and you'll hear me refer to that different times. The order is relating to the order of Freemasonry and Scottish Rite Freemasonry, and all those things associated. Bill Lee's first wife mysteriously died in an accident on his family's farm. The head injury. Emma and I's mutual friend, her son, I don't want to get into that really. So we'll just do this. There have been a lot of accidental, mysterious deaths surrounding the church that Bill Lee attends. This is Grace Chapel. So we started looking at dates of these individuals who passed away, and they directly line up with certain dates on the satanic calendar. Now I got to thinking about Egypt and Freemasonry, and I looked up and found the layout of the church he attends, and it's basically an exact mirror of the Temple of Karnak in Egypt. So that's something everybody needs to look at in your town. This architecture. They hide things in symbols. And me also being an artist, I've been able to recognize some of these things because I've got a lot of reference. Just artist, just art reference, but it's all there in these books I have. A lot of it is. Yeah, Billy is he's a Freemason. He might be in a different part of Freemasonry, but it's without doubt that he is, as is most of the people in power in Tennessee, and that goes from Oak Ridge to Chattanooga to Memphis to Knoxville. It's really overwhelming to think that the volunteer state is just this seat of the occult, but it is. It really is. And it's dark. It's evil. But I don't want to get too heavy into it. I want to keep this light for everybody. There's always time for all that, but start looking into your states, see what you find.
I'm going to bring up while you're talking the governor's mansion. I don't know if every state has a White House type building that their leadership lives in, but Tennessee does, and it's called the governor's mansion. And it's very interesting, the layout. First of all, it's gorgeous from the outside, but you look on the inside. Let me see if I can make this bigger. Maybe. Here we go. So Jack, walk us through. What do you see here?
Okay, so we have the checkered floor,
Oh,
the checkered floor, the columns. If you're looking at it, you're looking at the two columns on the left, right, or on the left side of the screen. Then you have the stairwell. I've actually seen I've seen another view of this too, but this is taken straight out of a Freemasonry handbook. Like the symbols. So you
legitimate.
may, yeah. And most of the time, the people who are like the architects who are involved in the creation of these elaborate mansions, they're Freemasons or associated with.
And that's who gets uh selected to live in these homes
Yeah, yeah.
designed
It's
by Freemasons. By Freemasons for Freemasons.
yeah. Um,
It's amazing. I can't believe, I mean, I can because they think that people are too dumb. And I don't like calling people dumb. They're just unaware, but to them, they think people are too stupid to look at this and not marvel, that they're not going to ask any questions, that it's just beautiful architecture. And it's like, it's literally a Masonic temple in this room, that's
yeah,
literally what it's designed after. And it's mind blowing to me that it's just placed out in public and, governors take pictures here and post them and people just, they're so
it's
unaware that they don't ask a single question about it, and once you can't not see this and right away just have these red flags blaring in your brain.
yeah. I mean, it's on full display, and like you said, there's a lot I'm uneducated about, a lot, and that's what they're counting on is for people to remain uneducated and not looking to these things. But they're failing miserably. Um, that being said, that there's still a lot of people out there who just don't want to pay attention. Um, and that's fine. I mean, I understand the cognitive dissonance. For some people, knowing these things and are initially learning about them tears apart whatever construct you had that you thought existed about what's happening in the world. Your belief system is torn asunder. And I would refer that to, I would say that's the biblical reference of, the veil being pierced.
And I want to say too, one of the notes on this front page of the governor's mansion says, along with all of Tennessee's governors who lived there since 1949, the residence's visitors included Presidents Kennedy, Johnson, Reagan, and Clinton. Other distinguished guests include Elvis Presley, Billy Graham, and Minnie Pearl, which we know a lot, if not all of those people, are also Freemasons or in orders.
Yep.
So it's very interesting just looking at the web. And like I said, they expect people to read this and say, oh my gosh, how cool Elvis Presley was there, and not say, why was Elvis Presley there? Like, what did Elvis Presley have to do with the governor's mansion? And there's always a reason. None of this is accident, you guys. Like, it's all related, it's all a network, and it's a big club, and we're not in it.
Exactly. Like George Carlin nailed that statement. Like he nailed that. He nailed that so well.
Yeah. But then it's like how you were saying, like asking questions. Okay, I know. And I think too, just like looking very locally and saying, what colleges are nearby me? What is the most, distinguished schools? Even private schools, high schools, as we know, also have secret societies. They can also have nefarious agendas. And be very particular with who they bring into it. So this can go down to, our smaller children. But I think in addition to looking at that local community, state level details, to also start up at the very top, that's a person that's not hidden. The governor of your state, we all know who that is. So being able to say, all right, where did my governor go to college? Was there any secret societies in that college? Where did he go to high school? What bloodline is he? Who were his parents and his grandparents? What did they do? Did he have past wives? Have there been deaths that have surrounded this person? There's so many things that we don't think to ask that are very important, and when, as Jack was mentioning with Governor Bill Lee, with his wife passing, the first thing, for us, unfortunately, that all of us asked when we stumbled on that was, what did she know that she was trying to disclose? That should always be a question that we ask. And it's an unfortunate question, but as Jack said, they will take out the people closest to them if it means keeping the secret. Whether that, again, could be a son of somebody like Angie, whether it could be the wife of a governor, and because the Freemasons also and the Illuminati control the media, they can twist the story to suit their fancy to say, oh, look at this accident. Somebody, I think Governor Lee's first wife died of a horse accident, I think.
Yeah, she mysteriously and accidentally died by herself on the family farm after falling off the horse and hitting her head.
He was the only witness to find her.
Yeah.
There was only one person that finds them.
And I think, what was it? We found him maybe I think we found one reference in one newspaper, one article in one newspaper that even talked about what happened,
Right?
and that was the end of that.
That
That
was
was the end
sad.
of that. So we can also, gosh, um, look at Joe Biden's first wife. Um,
Another mysterious one.
yeah, and I got to thinking about it from a medical perspective. Like, they're all the other mysterious deaths surrounding Grace. They all had similar injuries.
And all had
So
one witness or one person that found them.
yes, um, similar injuries. Head traumas. I think was what was prevalent in those surrounding Grace. Um, I don't know if anybody's heard of what happened at Grace, but then we also get into like um, Steve Berger, and where he came from. We also found numerous links to Scientology. Scientology, I don't, again, that's related to Gnosticism, esotericism. I guess being esoteric, but Gnosticism, and under the Freemasonry umbrella, and some of the more exotic areas, I guess you would say. Um, but Angie's on. Angie has Freedom for Gracie on Telegram, and I would encourage everybody to find that. You can find it through Emma and I,
And
on
Instagram
Telegram.
too.
Yeah. Um,
That case
I
blows
guess,
apart the whole narrative
yeah,
in DC, which is why they're silencing that story.
exactly. Um, and it's like you said, and like, these people control the narrative. They control the information flow to, from news agencies on down to your local newspapers, from major news corporations down to your local newspaper. Um, but the takeaway, everyone, is like, one, I'm trying to expose what's happening here in Tennessee, and Emma is just a tremendous help in helping me. Um, but the same should and probably does apply to you and wherever you're at. I'm just trying to help everybody gather some tools to start looking at things in your area that may not add up, or questions that you might have. The search tools, you know ways to disseminate information. Um, and I think a lot of us know that things aren't right in the world. You may not be able to articulate it, or put a finger on it definitely, like, but we're all in this together, and we're all trying to uh, do what we can. Like, this is a spiritual battle, and this is, I mean, just looking at what you're pulling up in. I mean, anyway, So we're just trying to help everybody. Um, if there's anybody in Tennessee watching this, listening to it, or whatever, if you've got information, reach out. We'll dig on it together. But I want to I want everybody to know that I'm going to be um, putting together some pretty extensive threads, basically articles that I'll be sharing on my Telegram channel, and I'll be sharing with Emma on Standby Survivors, and some of the other channels that we're both admins and part of on Telegram and Twitter. I have Instagram, but I use Instagram for my artwork. But Facebook, Telegram, and Twitter, we're pumping out the information that we can, but we do so accurately. We take the time to vet all of our information and research it. So that's kind of where we're at. We're trying to get all this stuff out about Tennessee and the pertinence of Tennessee and the secret societies contained therein.
Speaking of that,
just
I'll bring up this other screen too, which we found that's pretty interesting. That also relates to everything that you said, Jack.
yeah. Okay, so the Tennessee Chip Program is sponsored by the Freemasons.
Oh, so much wrong here. Anytime you see children and Freemasons or Shriners like in the same article or headline, like it is not good, you guys.
Yeah, so you may want to read directly from the website, because this is, to read this is it's kind of like, I don't even know how to describe that. Like,
it's scary. And it's happening in so many states. Like you see how many events that they're doing in all these states that are in this little, I know people listening can't see, but there's a map that shows current participants in this program. And it's pretty scary. Some of these states have 96 events or 39. Like it's very interesting. And after Jack had told me about this, I live in Missouri and I went and looked and found that this program is in Missouri also, which is horrifying. But I'll just read this little part. So it says Tennessee CHIP, and CHIP means to them child. So that's where the CH comes from. Identification program. Helping Tennessee keep children safe is what their logo is. And it literally has a Masonic square and compass right in the little logo that they chose, which is hilarious and scary at the same time. So it says Tennessee CHIP was established to raise public awareness concerning the risk of abduction or exploitation that our children now face in today's society. At each Tennessee CHIP event, parents are provided at no cost a complete ID package that has been designed to provide a thorough description of their child. Each ID packet contains vital identifying items for a child, such as comprehensive identification questionnaire, hair samples, DNA sample, etc. The ID packets are retained by the parents, and each parent is encouraged to annually update their child's ID kit as they grow with the current photo and any other pertinent information about their child that may aid law enforcement agencies in the recovery of their child should the unthinkable ever happen. I mean, my alarm, like my heart rate started elevating reading this, just thinking about how insane this is to provide DNA samples to Freemasons, essentially, who are alleging that they are going to help your child should they get abducted.
Yeah, and what's funny about that, like, I think there's a little disclosure in there, and it says something about we do not retain, the information, something to that effect, and it's like,
Oh,
really,
okay.
really. Why would you even sponsor a program like that if it wasn't going to be used?
A
Like if
hundred
you weren't,
percent right. Like, sure, nothing could go wrong with chipping your child and providing DNA and any pertinent information to the Freemasons about your child and to update it annually with more information as you get it. It's like, oh my gosh, what are they doing with this? First of all, if you're a parent, why would you ever consent to this with your child? Second of all, what do you think they're using that? They don't care if your children get abducted. These people abduct children. Okay. And I'm not saying all Freemasons, I'm not classifying all of them. At the top, there is a lot of corruption that happens, and these people do not do good things with children. And you know that if you've watched this podcast and survivors like Lisa Meister, who came from a Masonic family, and seeing what they do to children, right? And so just the fact that this is, and I don't, is this government sponsored, Jack? Do you know?
well, consider this: if
Because they're
the
providing it to
Freemasons,
law enforcement, right?
right? So if the Freemasons are also members of the bar, they're writing the legislation, they're writing the laws, they're creating the framework. Um, so yes, they're funding the programs. Government is funding this because it by default, you know. And I've got the PDF of the book. I think I sent it to you. Um, but it clearly shows the usurpation of common law for that of like the UCC and things like that created by the bar attorneys. Um, so yeah. Right there again, you know, how do you win a horse race? You own all the horses.
100%. This is scary to me because they're out in the community doing events and getting parents to come in thinking that this is going to help protect their children. You know, and it even says under the direct sponsorship of the Grand Lodge of Tennessee. And some of their partnerships are corporate sponsorships and partnerships. So you think about now they're reaching out to potentially businesses that are also getting involved in helping promoting this, and people don't know about this. This could be in your state, you know, and they could come after your child. Not that you would consent to it if you're listening. I know people listening to the show wouldn't, but think about friends that you have, or if they come to schools and send flyers home with kids, however they're infiltrating and trying to get this information out, they want your child to be chipped with this Masonic chip. You know, and the fact that I didn't even know about this till Jack brought it up. I didn't even think to look at my state. I just thought, wow, Tennessee is crazy that they have this. And I stumbled upon that it's in Missouri too. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, all this stuff targeting our kids at these high levels. And most of us are so oblivious to it because we don't even understand how this all works and what these people, what the agenda of these people is.
Can you maybe jump on maps real quick and look up Masonic lodges in
Google
Chattanooga,
Maps? Google Maps?
or just Google Maps and just look up Masonic lodges in Chattanooga.
Let's see here. Let's bring it up. Google Maps. And for people who are here saying, oh, she's using Google, I know. But if you talk to people who were in CIA programs, such as Penny Shepard, she will say it does not matter what search engine you use. It does not matter how encoded you think that your stuff is. Like, your phone is owned by the CIA. Your computer is owned by these people. They can access it anytime. It doesn't matter what restrictions you think on it are on it. She always says, use Google. It's the best that you can use. It doesn't matter. They have access to your phone. So before anybody comes at me with that, I just want to make that a statement. I do use alternative sites also, but just for the sake of this, I am using Google. And I believe Penny and I trust her. She knows better than anybody. And I don't think it really does make a difference, honestly, other than some of these search engines allow for us to search a little bit easier. They don't filter. Google seems to filter information according to what they want to be seen, where some of the other ones might pop up information that's more hidden on Google. So just want to put that. So you want me to look up Masonic Lodge, Chattanooga?
Yeah, just how many are in just this little area? Like,
Oh my lord.
oh, there's more than that. I'll send you a screenshot today of like the lodges near me, and proximity, of course. Um,
This is pretty impressive though, just from this. So there's more than this in your area.
oh yeah,
Wow. I think looking that up to you, wherever you're living, is important. When I moved to Missouri, I was really surprised to find that just a couple blocks from my house is a Masonic lodge. And within 1 square mile of where I live, there's over, I think it was close to 15 churches just in 1 square mile. There's a Masonic lodge that is right by a bunch of these churches, as well as 2 preschools. And it's pretty scary. So I think this stuff gets overlooked a lot because it is out in the open. We just don't pay attention, and we're not taught to look at geographic locations and their relationship to other geographic locations, such as a church or a school, whatever it is. Oak Ridge, a lot of these things are not built by accident where they are built.
yeah, yeah. That's just like I said, that's just there are more, and I'll I'll show that to everybody at least, or I'll make sure I get some screens. Um,
Absolutely.
and
Very, I wonder if I put like Freemason Lodge instead of,
yeah, I'm sure that'll pull up results also.
see if we can do both. That popular, let me take out Masonic. Yep, brought up a couple other ones. But it's really fascinating. Architecture and interior design, how we are showing you the inside of the governor's mansion, how we're looking now at geographical locations of lodges. There's a lot of importance. My dog hears your dog and he's like, what's going on? Um, oh no, hold on.
But
Sorry about that. But it's really interesting when you just consider all of this information and you start looking, you can start putting pieces together yourself. And nothing has been more helpful for me than having a search engine, having the ability to have GPS and to search things like this, and knowing who the key players are in my state. That is a fantastic starting place. And looking up, Jack was mentioning even the shape of a church was representative of a very iconic, Egyptian architecture that he's researched. And I think even stuff like that is really important for us to look at. Those are things we aren't taught to pay attention to, and they can be really crucial puzzle pieces to building a network and seeing how the web of deception works in your state and community.
yeah, I guess I'm an artist, and I really didn't think about the imagery so much until and this was just a couple of months ago. I was looking for reference for a drawing. I went back and went through one of my books, and before I knew it, at least every page or every other page had something to do with the secret societies and the symbols they used. I never noticed it before. Um, so it's like we know that they influence people through music and language, right? The same is said of art. Um, it's a perversion and inversion of everything that the creator. That's what these people are doing. Um, and it just goes back again to like, how do you fight your enemy if you don't know who the enemy is? You've got to at least have an idea of some of these things that is occurring on, we keep going back to that, a local level, you know, the next largest city or town you may be near, to your entire state. I think you owe it to yourself, and I know God doesn't want you to be ignorant of these things. He wouldn't have given you free will nor brain otherwise. So use everything that God's given you to fight the good fight. And this what I think Emma and everybody in our community, this community and movement wants everybody to do. Start locally and go out from there. We're trying to give you some tools to help aid in that fight, but if you don't know, you don't know. And there's nothing shameful about saying you're uneducated, because I know I'm uneducated about a lot still. And we just always keep pushing to learn. You're able to steer around those devices set up by the devil when you know what they are, or you at least have some idea of what they are. There's a lot of deep diving, and you can just research yourself to death when you get bogged down into to minute details, but you need to have a really good understanding of these systems in general. So that's what we want to do, is help everybody. That's the whole point of what Emma does. That's the whole point of what I do. This is not for my own edification or kudos or any of that silly stuff. I want to help people. Period. So we want to make a difference in people's lives.
And you do that so well, Jack. You're always the first to step up and help people. I know a lot of people come to you with questions, and you do amazing with your deep dives. This stuff is hard to cover in just a podcast. It's hard to cover in 5 podcasts. It'd be hard to cover in 100, honestly. There's just so much information. And I think if all of us do the due diligence and ask questions pertinent to where we are, start in your own neighborhood. I've even found out a lot about why a city or a street or a county is named what it's named. Even right, if you look like, say, there's a place out in Missouri called Columbia. Yet on almost every state and almost every county, there's a Columbia. Why? Why is that repeated so much? Why are some street names repeated over and over and over again? And those are things we're so accustomed to seeing that we don't really ask questions of, like, why did somebody name it that? But I think even looking at it from that perspective and looking at, where do you live right now? And what is around you that you have direct access to, that you're passing all the time, whether it's a school, whether it's a street, whether it's a building or an organization or a company like Oak Ridge, something that's significant that your city is known for, and something that's unique about your city that nobody else has, and diving into that, and then knowing your specific keywords. Like I said, I've Google search Ecosia or Ecosia, I don't know how you say it. I was using DuckDuckGo, but that seems very similar to Google now with how they've changed the algorithm. So I just use Google because there's just more information. But if like, one of the things that I did recently was I typed in satanic ritual abuse in Missouri, United States. And it populated all these articles, just of, some of them weren't really relevant, but I came across a couple that I was like, wow, that got buried, where that made a quick headline, or an independent journalist knew that. Or I've typed in, law enforcement scandals or Freemasonry, Missouri, just knowing some keywords, the verbiage now, you guys. Type it in with your location, type in some of this stuff, and just see what comes up and start scrolling. You might have to dig for a little bit to find something, but I always think, for me, it's, you might scroll through 100 things and find gold in one of them. You know, it might take you 100 tries to get there, or it'll populate right away. But I think if we empower ourselves to just ask questions about where we're at, that not only helps us, but we're helping our communities. Now we know if we see this chip program coming to a school near you where Freemasons or whoever sponsor is coming to talk about this amazing program for your child, you don't get sucked into it, and you can start educating other parents and saying, I would highly advise that you don't do this to your child, and here's why. You know, and we all have different ways that we can present things, whether it's a really deep version or a surface level. But I think just being able to empower ourselves, we make ourselves safer, because knowledge is our defense against mind control and control in general. But now we have information that we can start empowering our communities. We can start educating people around us. We can start looking out for our kids more, you know, and people that are important to us. So I think just understanding that and knowing what a big place that you have in your community, just because maybe you feel helpless, and I don't think any one person is going to solve all the problems of the world, but we start by solving the problems in our communities, you know, and educating ourselves on what's around us. And then like Jack said, that can allow you to start putting branches on your trees, or uh you know, levels on your pyramid to start going up or down with that, and extending out, branching out, and then putting together a bigger piece of the puzzle, whether that's going from a community to a city, whether it's going from a city to a state. And then once you get that, you can start going bigger. You know, how does my state connect to the states around me? You know, how does my country relate to other countries? And I think just understanding where you can start and how powerful you are to have all of this at your disposal, where you can go research yourself and rely on people like Jack that you can go ask questions to, that you can go look at what he's done and model your research after him or after Gary Wayne, whoever it is. You know, there's everybody that knows a lot started somewhere, you know, and they're living proof that you can start somewhere and branch out and grow and go from being this little insignificant story potentially to something very great and important. You know, and Jack, nobody does that better than you. You're incredible with everything that you've been able to uncover, expose, discover, whistleblow, however you want to put it. It's amazing to me that you started on such a small, and it was a big thing, but you started with something that now looks small and branched out so much that you now have this comprehensive view of the whole world. You know, and I think that that's something that we can all learn from and say, Jack did it all by himself. Jack didn't have somebody teaching him to do that. And this was, you know, a decade's worth of puzzle pieces that he's put together, that he's condensing down for you and giving you tips on how to make that time a lot shorter. And we're lucky we have so many more resources now than we did a decade ago. And there's just a lot more ways now that we can start digging our hands into this stuff. And we have people like Jack who are willing to help.
Yeah, and I wouldn't say model how I research, because believe me,
It might not work for everybody, but there might be somebody
yeah,
who it
you
does
know,
work, you know.
um, if I were going to model my research off anybody, it'd probably be Gary, or some of the other researchers that we know. The way I operate is kind of different. I get into I guess that realm of empathy and thinking like these bad people do to some degree, and so there is some. I guess I would equate it with artistic imagination, and the way I pull things out and research them. That being said, like, everybody has a different way of learning, right? Some people learn visually, some people learn audibly, others learn by doing, or a combination. Whatever works for you, do it. Like, I screenshot tons and tons of stuff, or I jot down little notes, trying to, if I catch something that sounds odd to me, I make a little note or something, where there again, I screenshot tons of stuff, because the areas of research I'm working on are pretty varied, but I'm finding parallels with everything. Uh, anyway, learn however you feel is best for you and apply that, if you see something somebody else is doing and you like how they research or what they what kind of results they get from their research, reach out to that person and say, would you mind me asking you a question about how did you discover this, or something like that. But yeah, I think anybody, and an issue I have with some people, and I get it, some of the people that have some of the larger followings on social media who put out a lot of information. I don't like messaging somebody and not getting a response. Now I get it when you reach a certain level, right? And you have to kind of delegate things out, right? I get that. But I think you should always have that perspective. People who helped you gain a large following or whatever, however you want to say it, like be humble enough to realize that you were probably where they were at one point in time in researching. Don't act like you're better than anybody else. I had some guy say that to me a couple of weeks ago, and then the stuff he was sending me um, was my own research, and he got offended that I said that I called him out about where it came from. Anyway, I'm not a fan of trolls or anybody who acts like they're better than anybody else. I just no. We're all part of this, and we're in it together. Um, so
And that's one thing I do love about you is your humbleness. You're always the first to say, here's what I found. If you have anything else or if I'm wrong, let me know. A lot of people don't have the ego check to be able to get feedback, whether that's stuff to add on or stuff that maybe to look into and to see if it's actually true. And I love that you do that. And people like you and Gary, Gary does have a very significant following, and he's always the first to say, I will give you all my articles, anything for free. He's never too busy for people. He says, like, it might take me 2 to 3 weeks to get back to you because that's how many emails I get, but I will get back to you. And I think for those of us that are in this community that have something to share and that have, been educating ourselves for a while, we are so eager to share because there isn't other people listening to us. So the people that are saying, hey, I want to learn more, it's such a blessing. Think about Jack trying to talk about this over 10 years ago. He would have sounded even more crazy than he does today. And you don't sound
yeah,
crazy, Jack, but I'm
yeah,
saying to, like, people that aren't exposed to this, it sounds crazy. And right now I think is a great time to reach out to people like Jack, to reach out to people like Gary Wayne. If they say, hey, I will help you for free, ask me a question. Obviously, we want to be respectful of their time. But if you're looking for a document that I talked about, if you're looking for, a starting point or to repeat something that maybe they said at some point and you forgot, like, reach out to them. They're always the first people willing to help, which is just amazing, because as Jack said, like, some people do, like, Jack has a life, he works, Gary Wayne does a lot, and that's such a beautiful blessing that they say that to, hey, reach out to me and I'll be willing to help. So I encourage you guys to reach out to Jack and help. And if you're in my Telegram channel too, Standby Survivors, Jack is an admin there. He's an admin to the Ricky Leaks channel, which I also recommend that you guys go join because they cover a ton of amazing information. It's different than my channels. It's different than Jack's channel. So if you join all these channels, you're going to get a great mixture of alternative information that you're not going to see on MSM. And Jack, where else are you on social media for people who, I know you went over it a little bit, but tell people your new Twitter name, tell people where
um,
they find you and oh no.
it's let's see. So on Twitter, it's Nuga Jack 423.
And Jack, for people who do want to support you, which I encourage everybody to, because again, you're doing this all for free. You give us so much information. You're on so many different platforms providing this information. You spend all these hours doing podcasts and researching. I'd love for people to connect with you. Where all are you out on social media and how can people support you?
Um, you can find me on Telegram. I've got the Maximus Disclosure channel. Um, and the channel's not really isolated exclusively to Maximus. You know, it's Maximus, Department of Defense, and DARPA stuff. I'm trying to broaden the spectrum a little bit, so it's um, I want it to be a repository for information regarding big tech and big pharma and the family court systems. And as far as fetches, it seems that like it is all related. So you can find me there, and you know everything's very much in progress, right? So um, don't hesitate to reach out. I mean, if you got a question about any of the things we talked about today or anything that we've talked about in the past, don't hesitate to reach out. You can find me on Twitter at NugaJack423. I have Facebook. I've got 2 Facebook profiles. One I rarely use anymore, um, but it's still there. So it just gives people another avenue if they want to reach out and connect and talk or whatever. The my IG, there again, that's just for my artwork, and
And your
I've been
artwork's
kicking.
phenomenal. People should go support your artwork. You're so multidimensional. Your art's amazing. So go support him on Instagram, even if he's not covering Maximus stuff. His art's really phenomenal. You guys will love it.
Yeah, and the information will always be free, and I won't monetize that. I just feel very strongly about that. It should be freely shared. Um, but I will say, if there are any channels out there, anybody listening, if you want some artwork, I do commission work. And to me, the amount of time I've spent becoming an artist and working at getting good at being an artist, I feel that's warranted. Um,
Yeah.
but
You
with
still
that
got
being
bills to
said,
pay. We do this all for free. It's expensive to do what we do in time and money. So any way that we can support truthers, so they can keep telling the truth, it's a great opportunity to support somebody that you're listening to and that you're taking a lot of hours and listening to the information that they give. It's a really great way to support those people who are doing content for free and don't charge you for it by supporting whatever their business is, whether it has to do with this movement or in Jack's case, he's an artist too, so you can go support him and purchase something that he made, get commission work from him, get your logos done, get whatever it is, have something done by Jack, which would be awesome.
yeah, I mean, and if it's just information, that's fine too. Like Emma said, we all do this for free. We put in countless hours, um, and I think we all feel like it's a responsibility we have to share this stuff. And I would just like to see. I know for the groups that Emma and I are in, that holds true. Um, we support each other, and I want to see more of that across the platforms. Um, People are people, right? And you're gonna have little spats or whatever, but it should come down to like you support each other, share information, and do what you can. Um, that being said, support each other and do as the Lord would instruct us to do. Yeah, yeah. Keep your head up and keep the faith.
Absolutely.
Always that.
And what was the Instagram handle for your art?
Oh wow. Um, I think it's J Pendergrass Art. J. Pendergrass art.
It is Jack _ Pendergrass _ artist.
Thank you. Like,
Just looked it up real quick.
yeah, I had to like the other night when I was on a show with like Johnny and Sean and on and everything on like the YouTube channel, and like I had to download some apps and because I don't use them that frequently, you know. Whatever. Thank you, Em.
You got it. And he's also an admin on our Telegram page, like I was saying earlier, on the Ricky Leaks page. So if you guys follow either of those pages, you can go in the search box, look up Jack's name, and they post all of his content in there, and a lot of it gets reposted. So you can find his page, you can find him directly just through going through the feed, or you can go ahead and search the admin and the people in that group and find Jack personally if you want to send him a personal message. Find him on Twitter. He posts a lot on Twitter. I'm so happy that he's back, and I know a lot of you will be also, because I know before, hopefully they give him back his old account since they're starting to do that. And he can get back all of you who are following him. But in the meantime, go follow his new account, which hopefully will serve as a backup. And I hope that he gets his old account back. But either way, he's back, and I'm really excited. And again, we do all of this for free, you guys. So you help finance us in more ways than you think, by paying with your energy, your support, your attention, your subscriptions, your shares. All of it means the world to us, and it helps elevate our voices, in the space where it's really hard to be heard. They don't want this information coming out. So even just simply following, liking, sharing on your page, retweeting, reposting a Facebook page, sharing an interview that Jack's done with a friend that you think would be open-minded, all of that really does serve us. It's not just financial, and again, support Jack's art. We're going to try to find some other fun ways to, get support from you guys, and just some more ways to be interactive. So we'll definitely discuss that with you once we get some more plans in place. But you guys, thank you so much for tuning in. It means the world to have your support. I can't believe that almost a year ago, I think once this airs, it will be a year, that my YouTube channel was deleted from YouTube. And finally this month in December, I just caught up to the same amount of subscribers that I had a year ago. So it's really great to see that progress and to have your guys' support. I'm seeing a lot of you come back that I had lost before. Jack is starting to connect more with you after he was purged off Twitter. So it really means a lot that you guys continue to find and support us. And we can't wait to have Jack back on. Jack, thank you so much for being here. It means the world to me. You're such a dear friend. Your research is just phenomenal, everything that you've done. And you always give so much value every time that you come on this show or any show. And it's just an honor to have you as my friend, and to have you as a recurring guest on the show. So thank you so much for being here.
As always, Emma, thank you. You do so much for everybody. It's just tremendous. The effort you give, the love you give, and the support you give to everyone. It I wouldn't have been able to find my voice personally if not for you. And that is
Jack.
I can't repay that. So the least I can do is be on your show.
Well, I think it goes without saying that you're giving a lot of people a voice with all the different things that you're talking about. And it's an honor having you. I can't do this without people like you. I was new to all this when I started a podcast. So having people like you who are willing to come on and share means the world to me. It's great for me to be able to learn from people like you who have been doing this research way longer than me. So thank you, Jack, for giving so many people a voice, so many parents and children who are going through the same things that you and your family have, and for sharing all of this, really deep corruption that's happening in the world. Like I said, everybody, please go support Jack. He's just amazing. And I will look forward to seeing you all next week. Thank you guys for tuning in, and God bless all of you. And Jack, thank you so much for being here. And you guys, much love. Happy New Year to all of you. And we will see you next week.